Always remember, the opinion you follow should be your own. Just consider the things stated here to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online.
Happy Friday, Mike.
Happy Friday, Phil, and everybody out there listening to us. Another episode and another, a lot of stuff to talk about, as always, I guess.
You know, I buy a lot of stuff that comes from Amazon. I buy like electronics, drones, and different things like that. And even prior to me making the purchases, I usually go on YouTube and watch a bunch of videos of whatever that electronic product is. And I noticed that unboxings are a big thing. They get like millions of views. And a common denominator in a lot of these videos is when they're unboxing, they compare the boxing to Apple.
Mm-hmm.
And as you already know, if a person says, well, this has a feel like Apple, or this is Apple-esque, or it's packaged like Apple, people give it like a thumbs up.
Yep.
And I've literally seen a good, excellent product that nobody else is making, and the guy just rants on about how the boxing was. He didn't like the packaging that it came in, and he'll give it a B instead of an A because of the boxing. So my question to you is basically, have you observed how Apple has changed the whole world of packaging and marketing?
100%. You brought up DJI as an example. Their packaging is completely Apple-esque. I mean, so Apple was the one that started the whole, even with the original iPhone, if you remember, it had the box inside the box kind of, right? And it slid out, and it has it. So we all know, pretty much everybody out there listening knows what we're talking about. It has that texture, right? It has that slippery texture. It was not cardboard looking. It was all finished, modern looking. I would almost call it self-nesting, like box within a box within a box.
It was a contradiction.
Yes.
It was intricate, yet it was simplistic.
But I'll be honest, some of the products, the box is nicer than the product.
I agree.
And DJI took it to another level too, because when you undo their stuff now, it's the same thing. It's very, I don't want to say, they go into magnets. Some of the box, Apple started that with the magnets. So the
flap,
box,
yeah,
with the flap. And DJI does that, and a lot of other companies are doing it now. I've noticed. I just got a bunch of stuff from electronic stuff from Dometic and from GoPower. Same stuff. They're starting to. All of the packaging is starting to mimic. I guess we can't even call it Apple anymore. Now it's just everybody.
Yeah, you mentioned DJI. If I was explaining it to someone who's never seen DJI products or them coming out of a box, a person could assume that they are like a segment of Apple.
Mm-hmm.
That if Apple went into that business, they would be DJI, in my opinion.
Yep.
So, Mike, a new nationwide survey of 68,000 college students shows only 3.6% now identify as a gender other than male or female. Now, that's a sharp drop from recent years. It's an interesting cultural shift, especially for Gen Z, who were once seen as redefining identity norms. Maybe it signals that younger people are hyper-aware of political change that shapes gender roles and expectations. What do you think, Mike? And just for a reference point for you, in 2003, they were at 7% identifying as something other. So it literally halved.
Well, I mean, I think it's just like anything else, like trends that start with kids or on college campuses. I'll call it a trend. I don't think it's any different than bell-bottom jeans or I don't know, a clothing style, right? I mean, I think it was a in thing for a while, and even then, like let's highlight what you just said, Phil. At its high point, it was 7. What did you say? 7%.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not I mean, in the scheme of things, it's a large number, but it's not. Still, that means 93% of the people weren't thinking that way, right? I mean,
Well, to me, such a large jump, it agrees with a thought process that I had already. Uh, Even before this big change in the last few years, there's always been, even though there's a negative that has been put on like those groups, there's also been a cool label attached to them. They, as far as dress and performing and stuff, they've always been considered cool,
yep.
which is like a dichotomy. And I saw like something similar to that with the changes in laws and the upping of the LGBTQ. Some people literally thought it was cool to say that they were. So I believe some of these people just telling the truth now.
Yeah.
And I do believe that some people are feeling a fear or a lack of freedom that they had before to express themselves in that way.
Yeah, but Phil, if you put on your profile that you're a he,
Mm-hmm.
that's a fad. Like you believe it, you already know it's not a debate. So you using the terminology, to me, that's a fad, as opposed
Yes,
to somebody that actually, I don't know what you want to call it, is in some kind of alternative lifestyle.
I agree. And I've even heard that there are some, for instance, men that are in industries working for institutions that are primarily LGBTQ, and they only acted that way or talk that way because that's the only way you can survive in that industry.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy I knew that worked in HR for a company, and they thought he was like a flame, and he a player.
See, so here's my problem with it. Not to get too deep into, well, that's what we do. Um, I remember a time a couple years ago. I was going to this play.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was in Massachusetts. I was going to a play, and the woman that introduces the, so she wasn't in the play. She wasn't a character in it, right? So she was just
Mm-hmm.
the introductory person, and she came out on the stage and she says, "Hi, my name is so and so, and I identify as blah blah blah." And I maybe it's just me, but I get irritated about this because like this is information that I don't need. Like, why do I care? I'm not talking to her personally, So I get it if you're in a conversation, a more closed conversation where you're personal. But this is not personal. She was coming on stage to introduce a play and then going to walk off stage. None of us were going to talk to her. So I didn't need to know. I don't really care whether she was male, female, he, she. Who cares how she identifies? So to me, that's a signal. That's virtue signaling, right? That's just I'm going to present my view on life by telling you this, like because it's irrelevant, right? She's gonna tell us, who's gonna be in the play, whatever. Sit in your seat and stay quiet till intermission. I don't need to know that she's a she, they, it, whatever. Who cares?
Well, Mike, you wouldn't be able to handle living here where I live. I live in a very liberal city. The scenario that you just described is like a regular everyday thing here. I've literally seen situations just like what you described, and people feel obligated afterwards to clap after that.
And,
So,
and that's my point. So that is no different to me than what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, where somebody's wearing a red MAGA hat or walking around with or driving around in their car with a mask on their face. Like that's a statement.
mm-hmm. And you notice that most of the time, the guy wearing the MAGA hat, why did he choose to hang out? He's hanging out somewhere that he don't even normally be. He's at a protest or he's in a part of town he normally doesn't go to.
Exactly.
It's with the idea to antagonize.
Yep.
Mike, a Politico expose just dropped nearly 2,900 pages of leaked Telegram chats from multiple young Republican chapters. And what's inside is staggering. Members allegedly praising Hitler, joking about gas chambers, mocking rape, hurling racial and homophobic slurs, and planning narrative control behind the scenes. This isn't locker room trash talk. These are future GOP operatives accused of extremism. So over to you.
Well, I think that's unfortunately true. I think that the far right and for this matter, the far left are both whack jobs, right? So there's an element on both sides, and on the far right, that element correlates heavily with all those things that you just described. Whereas I think you got on the other side, the far left is pushing an agenda that is equally, I'll call it terrorism in a different way. So it's certainly about taking people's rights away and taking communism or whatever else. Look at the guy in New York City. But the right scares me because they are, unfortunately, right now they're empowered. Or at least they look at they believe that they are.
Well, I'm probably going to shock you, Mike, but I don't care about them having these chats. I don't care how extreme their conversation was. I really, really, truly don't. The only issue I have is now that it has come to light, the framing of these of what they did. It's being framed by media across the board, whether they left or right, as boys. I have not heard the word man yet. These ain't boys. They're like 20s and 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And they have across the board, there's this messaging of they're boys. And if they were boys, almost anything that they did as a child, I feel universally you're supposed to look at it different than when they were an adult. And that's why there's this framing. So I have a disgust with the framing of the thing. Don't put it out there that they did these things and then frame it as though, but they're boys. If they're
Right.
boys, then you shouldn't even report it. It shouldn't even be on the news. Nothing you did as a boy should be on the news.
Yep. Agreed.
So every major news outlet, Mike, CNN, NBC, CBS, ABC, Politico, all the newspapers, blah, 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 blah. They refused to sign Pete Hegseth's new Pentagon press agreement. The rules would have forced journalists to get Pentagon approval before publishing anything, even unclassified info. That's a united wall of resistance we rarely see. Mike, why do you think every network, every newspaper, left and right, refused to sign this?
Well, I mean, I think it comes down to what we talked about last week's podcast. I mean, it's a freedom of the press. It's definitely an infringement upon it if you look at it from that way. I mean, I think I said last week that there has to be some kind of protection for our national security side of it, but as you stated, the Pentagon was invented as a mechanism to communicate, if you will, with the general public from our quote intelligence community, right? So if you take that communication away, now you have nothing short of, you've got like, the KGB or the Gestapo, or, what I mean? Like, you got something that has no checks and balances on it. So I think the press is looking at it that way. And when it comes to freedom of the press, that's when you tend to get them on the same page, both right and left wing media.
I think this is a universal type thing. Here in America, there are lots of groups that like to talk about civil war, uprising, different things like that, separation of the states, and all of these type of things, and to create fear mongering. And the reason why it doesn't create fear to me is because what I see in people is, and how basically America started and how the Constitution was implemented. I don't think that we can. There's certain things about the country that we have instilled in us from the very beginning, and if you go against it, the majority feel comfortable going against you. Because these news organizations, they normally flip-flop and go different ways, separate all the time on major things that they should be singular on. The only reason they all together on this one is because it's a button. You're going against the grain of what America is about, and people feel comfortable pushing back on those things, like the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment. Those are things that people feel very comfortable going against the grain, going against the institution, because it's almost disgusting for you to think otherwise.
Right. Yep.
It's right there. We have freedom. It's right in our Constitution. We have freedom of speech. We have the free press. And the reason why the whole idea of free press was ever created was to prevent them from being secretive about the things they did in our country.
Yep.
So,
which, by the way, is unique, like, because that's not the case in most places in the world,
right,
even currently.
Right. That's why everybody want to come here.
Yep.
John Bolton, once Trump's own national security advisor and now one of his fiercest critics, has just been indicted. 18 counts tied to classified national defense information, some allegedly shared with his own family over AOL and Gmail. Mike, how does someone with that level of clearance make mistakes like this? Or is this something deeper? Political payback or reckless arrogance?
Man, if he's sharing something on AOL, he's guilty.
Yeah,
I didn't even. Does AOL exist?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You've got mail.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's political retribution one way or another, though. I mean, they're just picking off each one of his enemies, and so here's the thing: is it causes them pain. I get why they're doing it. I guess. I think it's a nothing burger from a standpoint of it's a waste of time. They should focus on something more important. I don't know that any of these guys are really going to get. I mean, they're all getting indicted. That doesn't mean they're ever going to get found guilty or have any, repercussions. Hard to say. But I think they're just checking the boxes now. I mean, he's got enough people that he can simply go after whoever he wants. And if you're an enemy, I mean, they threatened this before you got elected, and they're following through on it.
Trump is letting anybody that had anything to do with his courtroom battles, he's getting them. He's getting his payback. And I don't even think he wants these people to actually go to jail. He wants them to go through all the litigation and time and
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If some of them happen to end up going to jail, like I think Letitia, I think she's going. At least for if it's nothing more than 30 days in time served or something like that. I believe that if somebody somehow ends up actually getting jail time, Trump is going to pardon them.
Yeah.
I don't think jail time is his. He wants them to, and he deserves it. He deserves it. They put him through hell. They were gonna get him locked up because they didn't like him.
Yeah. I mean, I know our left friends that are listening don't agree, but I mean, what he has against these current people is not much different than what they had against him before. There's not much evidence on either side for anything.
Neither side really can say anything because they're both vindictive. They both are cruel.
Yep.
One side used to just pretend like they weren't cruel.
Right.
And you find out they the most violent.
Yep.
Man. So, Mike, let's get to this. Even the harshest critics of Donald Trump are calling this the deal of a lifetime. You got Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, you got even Condoleezza Rice. They're praising Trump administration for brokering the Israel-Hamas ceasefire, something that eluded presidents for decades. When your political rivals give you credit, that says something. But Mike, is this genuine respect for diplomacy or political repositioning ahead of 2026?
I actually think that it's legit because I don't think that they have an option of really saying anything else. I mean, look, the only two people that came out and said anything that I would have considered to be negative was Joe Biden and his chief of staff. I forget whatever that guy's name is, and they look like a bunch of ding dongs. Even in their own, I mean, shit, nobody likes these guys. Nobody liked them before. I mean, he tried to say that it was his plan, that he had the deal. He released more hostages, whatever. But that is the dumbest argument I've ever heard. I mean, this is not about. First of all, this is not about 20 hostages being released and a few bodies being sent back. This is deeper than that. This is a international milestone from a standpoint as you have hundreds of countries involved in it. You have a broker deal that is so far holding, and I think that there's so much pressure. I actually believe it's going to hold to most extents because there's just so much outside pressure on this, and clearly it was all Trump. So even if you believe that Biden had this similar plan, that isn't the point of the whole thing because he couldn't pull that thing off. I mean, he couldn't take his socks off.
Every president had a plan. This has been going on, like I said, for decades.
Yeah, thousands of years, really. I mean, when you look at this, so whether or not does this end the hatred? No. Does this end them wanting to kill each other? No. But for now, it is a great. So the difference here is not just about the Gaza Strip either. It's about Lebanon. It's about Iran. It's about Yemen. It's about Syria. It's all of these countries are involved in this. And by the way, the Palestinians on the West Bank, the PLO, is involved in this too because it got repercussions for everybody. And there's so many countries that have voted for a independent Palestinian state. So we are as close to a peace deal as it's ever happened. And no, I 100% think that he pushed this to the finish line. There's no question.
So do you think this solidifies Trump's image as a global deal maker again?
I think, yes. I don't think there's anything that he can do about it. I mean, do I think that there's lots of people that can't stand thinking about that? For sure. I don't think it changes. I don't think there's anybody that hated him before that suddenly is going to be a Trump fan because of it. No, I think they still hate him. But I think it would be hard to deny and really not with history to try to fight it or to come out with some cockamanian counter view, which is what Biden tried to put out the other day. But I mean, I think his own party wants him to be buried in the sand.
So when we're grading presidents, just not on even like their complete presidency, but just one thing, one singular thing that they did as an accomplishment, and we were to weigh accomplishments from president to president, in my opinion, what Donald Trump did with this ceasefire, with this peace, is the greatest accomplishment of any person that rules any country in the 21st century. Not even just presidents, kings, dictators, whatever. In the world of leaders, this is the biggest accomplishment in the 21st century. And whatever you say number two is, it's a distant number two. It's not even, like something you could say it should be number one. There's nothing else to compare to this accomplishment, in my opinion.
And to extend upon that, I think that assuming that it holds for at least in most parts of it, and I think at this point, I think it's going to. He'll win the Nobel Prize next year for
Absolutely.
sure. It's a guarantee. It's foreshadowed already. And if he succeeds in any result whatsoever in either or both of Venezuela or Ukraine, this will be historic, a 100-year historic thing.
Yeah.
Because you had the person that just won the Nobel Prize this year for peace in Venezuela basically say that. She's basically at this point asking Trump to support regime change and to support Venezuela. And she's, by the way, very popular. It's been argued that she had, or her party had, more votes than Maduro did in the last election, as it was, but it was a scam. And so you're talking about a lot of people on the ground in Venezuela that are essentially being told to back Trump, which that's a big deal. And in Ukraine, because they have not been able to get that together, and Putin has been full of shit, which we kind of knew what he was before, and came to Alaska and all that was a load of garbage. Now Trump's authorizing the two most significant things that happened this week that go more towards what we're talking about here. Is one, he authorized the CIA to go into on the ground in Venezuela. And then the other thing he's authorized now, it looks like, is Minuteman missiles. Was it Minuteman? Maybe I misquoted. I can't remember what missile it is. Or maybe it was Hellfire. One of them, to put them on the ground in Ukraine. I think he's now determined at this point that Putin's full of shit, and we've got to do something more drastic to make him come around. But it's clear that Trump's now focused on that, because if he can bring those conflicts to an end, that's just almost not nearly as historical, but more almost as significant as the Middle East.
Perfect timing.
Yes.
Right after the peace in the Middle East, he's riding the wave of support of the whole international community. If he does it right now, he could end the war in Ukraine, and he can do it forcefully without people looking at him as a warmonger or something.
And I think Putin is looking at it the same way, going, holy shit, he just pulled this off over here. That's going to put more pressure on him, because as you said, they've got the entire community on his side at this point. And I think that is one more step to isolate Russia. And Russia can only take so many hits, both economically and militaristically united against them, before they cave.
And boy, after all of the pageantry and power show the last couple of weeks, Xi Jinping has been super quiet. You ain't heard nothing from China in no form or fashion, other than we slapping some more tariffs on them, but they've been silent.
Yep.
So I think they're even losing some support from China, Russia.
Yep. I agree. Look, China's not, they're no dummies. They don't want to end up on the wrong side of it either. You know, at the end of the day, they sell most of their shit to the Western countries, not to Russia. So they got to be careful where they tread. They don't want to lose their economy over it.
So you may disagree with this. We're in a unique situation that we used to always be in when I was growing up. Regardless of whether it's true or not, the United States was like always looked at as like the on the higher ground, the higher moral ground, the savior, the know-it-all. And we've lost all of that. With this peace in the Middle East, we are temporarily back on that pedestal. Now, it's not permanent. We're teeter-tottering, but we have a moment here where we can get some things done, and we hold the perception of higher moral ground. Am I making sense?
Mm-hmm. See, and that's where Trump came through, because the difference between him, whether you like him or not, he's that kind of guy that wants to assemble everybody in one room and not open the door until they can agree on something. And he's bombastic in the way he speaks and talks and communicates with everybody. So he's one of those drivers. And you know, and you saw that. You saw them coming to Washington, you saw them going to Alaska, you saw them going to Egypt. I mean, he's getting people to, I think you said it last week's podcast, he got people, leaders of the world, flying all over the hell, all around the world constantly.
Mike,
And he's the one facilitating that.
Trump had a unique situation that played into his favor, even though no one would want to do this. He ran for president, he became president, and then he wasn't president for a while. Most presidents, if you read the books that they write after they're out of office, they have all of these regrets. They have all of these moves they would have made, these things they would have said in a meeting and what they would have signed and all of that stuff, right? He had an actual chance to reflect and come back in with full knowledge of his powers and what he could do. And it was actually to his advantage to have that break and to come back.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what you're seeing here. And he's now, is it all coming out of goodwill? Not necessarily, because you got to remember, I said this a bunch of weeks ago, that the main reason that he is such a peacemaker from a standpoint of not wanting wars is because he's an isolationist. And we can argue about that all we want. That is not necessarily a good thing. But because he's got that isolationist background, not wanting, America, whatever he calls it America first and all this other garbage. But that drives his strong desire to end conflicts, because his view of ending conflicts means that we don't have to go into them and we can withdraw, right? We don't have to be policemen. We don't have to be in that region. We can get out. We can focus on America. I don't necessarily think that that's a good policy, but if it works for some of these peace initiatives, then you could argue that there are elements of the other thing he's arguing, and there's some truth to this, is that some of his tariff policy has created the peace policy, and his dynamic with that is that the tariffs have scared the shit out of people in different countries, and it's brought people together to dialogue. And they've quickly realized that the economics are more important than the military side of this. So because of the tariffs, he's got people around the table talking more, and that's helped the peace process.
And something else about the tariffs, Mike, and I learned it from a friend who's living in Chile right now. First of all, I didn't realize how much food we get from Chile. We get a lot of food from Chile. And he made me aware, he was like, when you're living in America, the effects of the tariffs is more talk than actual effect. So when we're having the discussions and arguments about it, we're thinking, oh, this is stupid what he's doing, and it's not really doing anything. But what he was telling me is just when we announced that we possibly may raise tariffs, there are actual effects to the common people in those countries that are almost immediate.
Yep.
So,
and by the way, that's what Trump has always been all about. He's always about media, and he's always about making statements. And we call it on the ground in America, we call it, diversion tactics, or we call it, he just likes to poke the bear or whatever it is. But it's very effective in stirring the pot.
Subliminals.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what I have learned is people pay more attention to American politics than a lot of Americans do. They know what's going on here.
Yep.
So when he's on social media and he puts something out there, it's man, the world has really social media has changed the game. And he an 80-year-old, whatever he is, old man, is like at the cusp of using social media to his advantage.
Yep.
So, Mike, to me, it's wild how Barack Obama's image has completely flipped. For years, we were told he was the ideal, the perfect family man. But he went on his wife's podcast saying young boys needed a gay friend. And Michelle refused to attend Trump's inauguration, leaving him standing there alone. No first lady has ever done that. He was championed as the unifier, the man of peace, but there was no peace under Obama. Not in the Middle East, not at home. And now the man who actually brought peace to the region, Donald Trump, gets no acknowledgement from him. And let's not forget when Obama mocked Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, thinking it was a joke. But Trump turned that moment into motivation, became president, and did what Obama couldn't, deliver peace. So, Mike, is Obama's legacy finally collapsing under the weight of its own illusion?
I mean, I think we talked about this before, but the whole hope and change thing was shit. That a lot of that faded out while he was still in power, right? I mean, he ran on that campaign, and I think there were a lot of people, myself included, were excited. He was super dynamic, super charismatic, and he paints a great picture. But the problem is, there never was follow through, and I think if you look, history will show that he did very little. He was very, ironically, being a Democrat, he was almost too conservative. Like, he was very conservative. He didn't want to do anything. No rocking the boat anywhere.
So was the Obama image always more marketing than reality?
I think so. I think
Absolutely.
It was the big O with the flag in it. And he was all about marketing.
Did Trump's Middle East success expose how little Obama actually achieved abroad?
Because Obama didn't do anything abroad.
Right. Donald Trump has accomplished more. It hasn't been a year yet. He's accomplished more in a year than Obama did in his entire political career.
So you have to look at legacy, right? And if you look at the legacy of each president, Obama's, I would argue that his is the Obamacare, right? It's the Affordable Health Care Act. And the reality is that now we're on 8 years on, 10 years on, 12, I don't know. It's been a while. It hasn't worked really. It's still a mess. It really isn't any better than it was. It's got all sorts of challenges. This is why we're fighting about it still. So his legacy is based on one major thing that really has turned out to be a disaster. And by the way, I'm not saying his policy was a disaster. Healthcare in the United States has always been a disaster. And he didn't make it any better. Let's just say that. I don't think it got worse. It just didn't get better.
Well, it did get worse in the sense that at least people had a choice of, well, if I can't afford private, if I can't afford the government, then I'll just go without.
Right.
You no longer have an option to opt out. So you have just been so that's debt. Regardless of whether you can pay it or not, they've added debt to your life.
Yep.
out of nowhere.
Yep.
Has Michelle's tone and distance changed how people see their marriage and brand?
Dude, I don't care what they say on their podcasts. I don't think they're fooling it. I don't think the two of them are even together.
The more they talk, the more it's like, okay, was this like some prearranged setup? Was this all an act? Did they even sleep together?
I don't know.
Or anything? It seems like that was just all staged.
Seems that way. Or at least it is now.
Like in Hollywood when they'll put a couple together and she's his beard or something like that.
Shit, I would tell you that Bill and Hillary are tighter, and you know, I'm not sure they were ever together.
I don't want to go too far, bro. But what I've been getting to, Mike, is Trump has flipped the script and distinguished this. He has put out the flame that Obama had. Every day, every month that goes by, more and more people are coming up from under the ether and realizing, oh, Obama, he didn't do this, he didn't do that. And then he makes it worse by these little comments that he's making in recent months about things that are going on.
I mean, I told you 2 weeks into the administration this time that he'd gotten more done in 2 weeks than most of these guys have done in 4 years. And I'm not suggesting, and I'm not saying that I agree with this policy. I'm just looking at this from a black and white third party perspective.
Just production.
There is nobody that can argue that he has the most production of anybody. Like, I don't know how you would argue that. I would think even his biggest haters, the reason they're hating on him so bad is because he's producing so much and succeeding at his agenda, which they don't want. But you can't argue he's getting more done than anybody.
He got more energy than all of our younger presidents. The big joke all the time, in any news channel, at some point somebody's going to crack a joke about how does he get any sleep?
Right.
I wake up to him, I go to bed to him, he's like it's not like pre-recorded stuff. It's live stuff all day. So he's not cheating you. You actually seeing, they show him going to the plane, they show him going everything.
See, he has the one advantage you brought up earlier was that he had 2 terms that were split by a 4-year vacation, basically. Mm-hmm. And that 4 years was filled with Biden, who, like, even his vice president now in her book is basically everybody has admitted that he did absolutely nothing and was barely coherent. So the contrast is so incredible. Like, it would be different if, like, let's say Obama was the president in between Trump and Trump, or George Bush, or pick anybody, Clinton, anybody. But because you had Biden, who was the, I mean, I don't know how I give me 20 years, history's going to tell you he's the worst president of all time. There's just no way. I don't see how anybody could argue anybody was worse than him. Definitely from a production level.
I agree, bro. We're on the same page.
He just basically slept, ate ice cream, and sat on the beach and drooled. That was it.
I agree. I agree. We have reached a point in Trump's presidency, and I never thought that we would reach it. I thought that no matter what Trump does, he would not be able to get the adulation that he's getting this week.
I'm a little surprised by some of the people that even Zoran Mandami basically said he'd give him credit for that, which is that's almost fantastical that he would say something like that, because he's been getting a lot of negative publicity in New York City too, and probably rightfully so. I mean, it's very thinly veiled that he is anti-Semitic. I mean, let's just be honest. He's in the same league with what's her face out of Minnesota or whatever.
Ilhan Oman.
Ilhan Omar Sheik Omar, whatever her name is.
I've got to practice her name because
Yeah,
I'm not, because some people, they get on air and they fumble through someone like her name as a joke. I really
no, we're
don't
not
know.
fumbling. We I can't remember it.
Yeah.
Ilian I don't know what her name is. Ilian Omar, I think.
Ilhan
Ilhan
Omar.
Omar. Is that it, or is there another name?
I think it's Ilhan Omar, but I know next time that we're on, and if I say her name, I'm going to say it correctly. I'm going to practice it.
Yeah, she needs initials. At least AOC has initials.
I'm more. It's more important to me that everybody understands that we are not playing that game.
Nope.
Whew.
Woof.
Anything in the news, Mike, that's interesting to you that you want to talk about? I know that the gas prices, it looks like drivers might finally catch a break at the pump. The national average is hovering around 307 a gallon, and experts say we could soon dip below the magical $3 mark for the first time in years, with oil prices dropping under $60 a barrel and over 40 states seeing cheaper gas. Do you think this drop changes how America spends, travels, or even votes as we move into the next year? I'm more interested in the vote part.
You know, I don't know. I mean, we're not ready to get into the midterm conversation. I don't think yet here on the podcast, but
It's 2005. It's in 2006.
That's true. I mean, admittedly, Santa Claus was out in the stores 3 months ago, so I guess yeah, go with that principle in mind.
Because the reason I asked it, Mike, is because certain things trigger people without them even thinking. It's
food, gas, housing. Those are the big ones. Like, I mean, I'm being a dead horse, but like you saw that in the last election, and I don't have any reason to believe that the midterms are going to be any different. People still care about the economy. They still care about how much their food costs and their availability of gas and housing. And we've talked about this so many times on the podcast that the other side, I mean, they lost because they were obsessed with whether women can play in men's sports and men's sports can play in this, who's transgender, what's going. I mean, that's just a big, nobody gives a fuck. Like at the end of the day, just nobody cares. Like there's not enough people that care, but everybody cares about food and gas.
Right. And of those things, especially with gas, there's a trigger that people have. The first time you go to the gas station and you look up and you look at that sign and you see that number 2.99, it's going to feel a certain way. Even though you're paying $3 still.
Yep.
It feels like you're paying $2. I think that if he gets the gas, and they're predicting it will, gets below $3, that's going to garner him a nice chunk of votes.
I agree.
And
by the way, we're not talking to any of you guys out there listening in California right now because you guys are on another planet. So that'll never happen. You're just hoping that you get a 4 in front of something.
Yep. California's is currently $4.65, and it's the highest in the whole country.
Yep.
But Mike, there are people whose businesses run off gas, whether it's you are door-to-door business, you're driving to different businesses, soliciting stuff, whether you are a landscaper, whatever. There are a lot of entrepreneurs, gig hustle people, big businesses that gas has been a major chunk of what they do, what they spend. Trips. There are people who have rearranged trips that they had planned in the future because when they calculated the gas, it was the gas that kept them from making the trip. So I'm thinking cheaper gas will lighten the mood of the country. It's gotta get you some votes. I'm not saying everybody's going to all of a sudden become Republican and Trump, but I think that he's going to pull some people over into this 2026 election. People are going to be like, well, I want more of this.
Well, it's not only you're talking just about trucks and cars. I mean, gas also is involved in heating your home. It's involved in petroleum industries making plastic, which everything in our entire life is plastic. So it goes right along the whole thing. Like every single thing is affected by the petroleum price, right? And yeah, I mean, I think that is so. It's interesting you brought that up. That's probably the thing that citizens, see first. As regular citizens, we notice, as Americans, notice fuel prices more than anything because it's a static that's been going on for so long, and we track it up and down as it moves up and down. And I think that probably motivates the economy more than anything, more than food. Food also obviously is super important, but it's hard to we're not looking at eggs or cheese or a hamburger necessarily the same way because it's all over the place. Whereas fuel is, we all understand that, right? And we all have to buy it, and we all use it for everything. So I think if I had to select one thing, if I was running for office or trying to get people elected, and one thing that I could improve upon that's going to get me the most votes, it's the price of gas.
I agree, bro. I remember growing up, something that these kids probably can't experience. I could take $20 and put it in the vehicle, and I could drive all weekend.
Yeah, now you're lucky you can get to the next town.
To the next gas station.
Right.
Mike, tariffs have brought a wave of companies back to the U.S. manufacturing, but some never left. They built their products here through thick and thin. What if the government stepped in and created official tiers? Top status for companies that stayed loyal to American soil for decades, while latecomers who only returned after tariffs get a different rank. That way, longtime U.S. manufacturers could proudly stamp USAOG or USA Prime Code, showing they invested in American workers long before it was the profitable thing to do. While the newcomers can't rewrite history just because the numbers finally work out. What do you think, Mike?
You're talking about from a tax code perspective?
No, simply like, let's say, like when you buy steaks, you can get
USDA Prime or yeah.
And you'll just be able to, just like now, there's certain requirements to have made in USA. Well, when everybody comes back,
yep,
everybody's kind of like on that same even keel. I want something that differentiates, that says, hey, I was here all the time. I didn't just do it because I had to.
Yep, I'm with you. I support that.
All right, guys. You heard it here.
First. Well, maybe not first, maybe second.
So I that's something I would like kind of like champagne is only champagne if it's from Champagne,
Yep, gotcha. Maple syrup, it's got to be, or Vermont made. That Vermont went through that whole thing. If to say it's made in Vermont, because everybody wanted to be made in Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not everything's made in Vermont.
So, you got anything else you want to talk about, Mike, or you got any last words
today?
I do want to end with that. I think we're gonna have some really, 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 probably some of the most exciting news. Not probably, the most exciting news for sure by leaps and bounds that we've ever had. And just look forward to next week. You want to
I
speak
got
on
some
that, Mike?
big news. Big news.
Big news. Big news. Big news. Uh, anything else, Mike?
No.
All right, guys, you know what I'm going to say. Stay safe, tread lightly, and hopefully we'll see you here or on the trail soon.
You have been listening to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.